Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the AIA Contract Documents webinar on a simple guide to construction management documents. A disclaimer before we begin, any information that you get from this presentation should not be used as legal advice or considered legal advice. We'll be talking about some standard form contracts. If you have any specific issues that you think may require legal attention or you may be seeking advice on, we just encourage you to reach out to a local attorney to get that advice. And again, today's information will not be legal advice. So with those housekeeping items out of the way, I'll go ahead and introduce myself as well as my co-presenters. So my name is Sarah. I work with AIA Contract Documents, doing trainings and webinars such as these on the basics of our documents, as well as using our online software. I do several trainings on those as well. And I'll be presenting today with my colleague, Ben Siegel. Ben, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Sarah. Hello, everybody.
So Ben works as a manager of information at AIA Contract Documents. He answers questions and inquiries about our documents. He knows the documents very, very well. A lot of times if you get in touch with our docinfo line or our document content line, helpline, you'll get in touch with Ben. So he's bringing a lot of expertise on the documents today. So we'll be kind of going back and forth as we take you through the presentation. And I'm going to get us started with just some very basics, just to get everyone on the same page in the audience, and just going through what exactly an AIA contract document is. So AIA contract documents is a collection of usually around 200 forms and contracts that you can use as templates to define the relationships in your construction projects from a contractual perspective. I say approximately 200 forms and contracts because they're constantly, each form and contract or document is constantly evolving through a redrafting process in which we update them every 10 years or so and retire certain ones. So it's an evolving collection of documents. The documents themselves are drafted and revised by our AIA Contract Documents Committee. This committee is comprised of over 30 experts in design, construction, law, and insurance with diverse backgrounds that bring a lot of industry insight. And they work with AIA Contract Documents attorneys, our construction attorneys that we have on staff, to go through and analyze industry insight, take a look at what the current needs and updates are in the industry, and then, as I mentioned, send each document through a drafting and revising process to eventually release the document for you to be able to use as a template for your own contract documents in your own construction projects. Now, to get access to these templates, you will go to the AIA Contract Documents purchase page, which I'll be revisiting a little later. But just to give you a little preview, you're going to have 3 different options for gaining access to these templates. You can purchase a basic single document. This is going to involve picking out a standard AIA template. You'll plug in your project details, and that will give you an authentic finalized document. If you want to edit any of the legal language, so anything that's not in this standard AIA template, you can get a customizable single document in which you start with the standard template and then you make any edits to the legal language as you see fit. You can also get an unlimited 1-year access license, and that is going to allow you to edit, create, finalize documents to your heart's content. It is just that, it is unlimited. So I'll be revisiting kind of the purchase page a little later so you can see exactly where you can get access to the templates that we'll go over today. If you do end up purchasing a customizable single document or an unlimited access license, editing and creating of those documents is done in the online service. This is our online software that you'll use to edit, finalize, and organize these documents. In your follow-up email that you'll receive from AIA Contract Documents, you'll have the option to sign up for a live demo of the online service if you're interested in taking a look at how you can use the online service to create and manage your documents. I'll also at the end go through some different trainings that we have that'll take you through how to actually use the online service once you're in there. But for now, that's all I'll touch on in terms of the basics. I know this webinar is to go over a subgroup of our collection of documents. So my colleague Ben is going to get us started with the first group of documents we're going to go over, and that's the CMA documents.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. So as Sarah mentioned, we have a lot of documents, of course, over 200 of them. Broadly, we have agreements and forms, and so an agreement would be an agreement between parties, and a form would typically be just a 1 or 2 page form to accomplish something during the process of the job or the project, whatever it is. So we have different what we call families or groups of documents based on the project delivery method. And today we're going to talk about 2 of those, CM, construction management. So we're going to talk about CM as advisor and CM as constructor. So this first family is called CMA, construction manager as advisor. And so this is where the CM is a third party, meaning that they are not the architect and not the contractor. So they provide construction management advice, oversight, and another advice to the owner, but they do not actually act as a contractor. So there's a separate contractor or perhaps multiple contractors who are prime that goes, multiple prime contractors going directly to the owner. The CM does not do the construction themselves or sub it out. Everything goes through the owner. So those are the defining features of the CM advisor family.
Thank you, Ben. So to get into a little bit more detail about the CMA family and exploring the relationships that you're going to find, and importantly, the documents that you can use to form those relationships from a contractual perspective, we're going to kind of go through a visual or kind of a diagram of the relationships and the parties that you're going to see in the CMA family. So you're going to start in a CMA family. You have the owner. The owner is going to retain an architect to get things started with the project. That architect is going to prepare drawings and specifications and eventually assist the owner in obtaining bids and proposals. And around the same time in a CMA construction project, the owner is also going to retain a CMA. As Ben said, the CMA acts as an additional advisor throughout the project. So that CMA is going to give the owner construction management advice through those beginning phases in the design phase, but also through the construction phases. So it makes sense that the CMA is going to have increased expertise in managing a project from start to finish, because that's precisely what they are charged with doing. Then the owner is going to retain contractors directly. So then you have your prime parties in a CMA delivery method project. So you have your owner, architect, CMA, and then your contractors. Now taking a look at the actual documents that you can use to form these relationships, again, from a contractual perspective, we're going to get into specific documents that we offer here. Taking a look at that architect-owner relationship, we have the B132, the owner-architect agreement for a CMA project. A quick note about this alphanumeric you're seeing, it's the B132. We use alphanumerics as a titling system for our documents. They help keep our documents organized, they help group them together, and they also provide kind of a shorter title for which we can reference them by. So throughout the presentation, you may hear us referencing documents by their alphanumeric. For example, I'll say the B132. It's not vital that you memorize these alphanumerics. Again, they're just a titling system. And you will have plenty of guides, including the recording of the presentation, to revisit. If you ever forget what an alphanumeric is or the title of the agreement, then you'll have plenty of references to help you find it again. So you have your B132, which is going to define that owner-architect agreement in the CMA edition or the CMA project. Then you also have your relationship between the owner and the CMA directly, and that's through the C132. And then you're also going to have an owner contractor version, CMA version, which is your A132. So those are your three prime contracts that define these relationships. Now you'll notice that there's no direct contractual relationship between the architect and the CMA or the contractors. That's not to say that they won't, of course, be collaborating plenty throughout the project, but their responsibilities are coordinated, and their collaborative responsibilities are coordinated within this general conditions document. So the A232, this is general conditions for the CMA family, is a separate document. It's an umbrella document over the entire project that's going to coordinate all the roles and responsibilities for each of the parties involved. So the architect, owner, the CMA, and the contractor, contractors. And this document, even though it is an umbrella document that covers the whole project, it does not stand alone. It is designed to be used in conjunction with the agreements that you see, the B132, A132, and C132, and they are designed to be used in conjunction with the general conditions document. You're also going to have some sub-relationships here, so it's pretty likely that your contractors are going to hire subcontractors. And then your owner or your architect might also hire some consultants. So here are some additional parties that may be part of the bigger story of your construction project. And we also have some sub-agreements to define those relationships as well. So for the contractor-subcontractor relationship, you can use the A401. We're going to see that again a little later. And then for the architect-consultant relationship, we have a C401, that architect-consultant agreement. And if your owner is hiring direct consultants, so hiring a consultant directly, you're going to have that relationship defined in the C103, their owner-consultant agreement. So there you have kind of a visual layout of a CMA project and how it can be defined via these contracts. And as kind of a summary here, you have them listed all out. These are all of the agreements that you're going to see in the CMA family. Now, Ben's going to be going over forms that you may see. So there's a few extra documents, but as far as contract agreements goes, this is the summary of what's covered in the CMA family. Ben, I'm going to pitch it to you just to make sure I didn't miss anything in the CMA family, and then we'll go through some CMC stuff.
Yep, sounds great. Everything looks good. Just one little note, she mentioned the general conditions, and for the most part, like most of our documents, the documents in each family are unique, although sometimes they do share some of those same documents with other families. And in this case, the sub agreements you'll see later are also part of other families as well. And when we say prime, we mean with the owner, and when we say sub, we mean somebody who is a non-owner is hiring. These are colloquial terms. You're not necessarily going to see that in the documents themselves.
Thank you, Ben. I'm going to move on now to the CMC. I'm going to pitch it back to you.
Great. So the other family is CMC. So this stands for Construction Manager as Constructor. So this is basically where the CM takes on the contractor role. So the CM is the contractor. They're one and the same. And that means that they provide pre-construction and construction services, as well as, of course, construction management advice and oversight as well. And so that means that they do the construction themselves and or sub it out. So it is similar to the CMA family that we just saw, except for instead of there being one or multiple prime contractors, there is just one prime contractor who is also the CM. Otherwise, the structure is pretty similar, as we will see.
So let's now take a look at the same kind of visual diagram setup, but this time for the CMC family. And we can see how there are some key differences here between CMC and CMA. We're still going to start with the owner. The owner is still going to retain an architect. That architect is still going to cover and provide drawings and specifications. But instead of hiring a CMA in this delivery method, the owner is, of course, hiring a CMC. Now, the CMC, as Ben mentioned, is going to differ from the CMA because the CMC is going to provide services beyond advising and is actually going to be responsible for building the work. So it's still getting involved early in that pre-construction phase, but throughout the entire construction phase as well, the CMC is actually still going to provide those construction building services. So taking a look at these documents that define these relationships, you have the B133. So it's still that owner-architect agreement, but you'll be using the CMC edition this time. So a little bit of a different document. And then you have two different options to define the owner-CMC relationship. It is either the A133 or the A134. It's not both. The difference between the two being whether or not you have a guaranteed maximum price in your contract. So this has to do with the pricing structure. Both of these documents cover a cost plus structure. This is opposed to stipulated sum. With the owner CMC relationship, the cost plus structure provides some of that flexibility that's necessary in terms of pricing because the CMC is getting involved early enough so that the work hasn't quite been defined enough that a stipulated sum would be able to reasonably be defined. So that's why both of these agreements follow the cost plus structure, which basically just means cost of work plus a fee. And whether or not you want that GMP, that guaranteed maximum price, which is your price ceiling, will define whether you go with the A133 or the A134. And along those lines, you're also going to use a different general conditions document for this type of project. This time it is the A201 general conditions. Still serves the same purpose. It's still an umbrella document that it's going to coordinate these responsibilities and roles, but you're going to make modifications for the cost of work because it's going to be a cost plus structure. So you'll just make those modifications. Otherwise, the A201 general conditions is completely applicable, and you're still going to have some of those sub-agreements or sub-relationships. Notice that the CMC is going to hire subcontractors directly. And actually, they're going to use, to define that relationship, the same contractor-subcontractor agreement we were looking at earlier, that A401. That's because at this point in the project, if the CMC is hiring subcontractors, the CMC will be far enough in the project and that at that point, they're pretty much acting as a contractor in terms of their responsibilities. So the contractor-subcontractor agreement is relevant at that point. That's why we don't have a separate agreement for that. So that remains your A401 and the C103 up at the top there, the same owner consultants agreement, as well as your architect consultants agreement, that C401. So Ben had mentioned earlier that a few of these documents are shared between the two families when you're looking at the quote-unquote sub-agreements. So to summarize the documents that are covered in this family, you're still going to have those agreements down at the bottom. Those are the same. But now on the right, you'll see the contracts involved in the CMC family. So all of these documents together represent our CM contracts. Those grayed out being the CMA, those in black at the top being the CMC, and then your shared documents at the bottom that are applicable no matter which family you're in. So Ben, do you have anything to add before we move over to the forms and exhibits?
Nope, I think that sounds good.
All right. So remember that you will have these slides. You'll have this list to have on demand, and it's a great reference guide to go back and take a look at the full names of these documents, as well as sometimes it's helpful to have those alphanumerics to search through. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Ben, who's going to walk us through some forms and exhibits.
Okay, great. Thank you, Sarah. So as we had talked about, we have agreements and forms. So as far as forms, we do have a lot of them, but we're going to go over just a few of the more commonly used ones here. And you'll see that there will be the sort of traditional version and then the other versions for certain types of jobs. So let's see here. Sarah, I'm not able to click through here.
Let's see.
Okay. Thanks.
I'm just going to put them all up there for you.
Great, that's perfect. Yes, thank you. Again, this is just a few examples. We have many forms, and there are many things that can come up during the course of a project, of course. But just to go over a couple of the main ones, we have a change order, which is just simply an instrument to change something, anything, in a construction agreement. So it is usually money, but it doesn't always have to be that way. It could be time and or anything else. So any sort of change that needs to happen to a construction agreement, that is called a change order. So that we have the G701, and then of course we have the CMA version of that, which is called G731. So in this case, the G701 is sort of the standard traditional change order for a conventional family, and that also works with CMC. So again, going back to that concept of sometimes they're shared. So in these documents, the CMC shares with the conventional family because the CMC is basically just the contractor. So in G701, you have 3 parties signing: the owner, the architect, and the contractor. And so that would be for a conventional project. For a CMC project, it would be the exact same form, and the contractor is the CM. For G731, it is the same thing, except for they have the owner, the architect, the contractor, and the CMA. So the difference there is it adds us an extra signature space for another party, which is the CMA. So that's the CMA edition. For the payment applications, it works the same way. We have G702 and G703. Those are the traditional, conventional payment applications. Again, contractor is CM. So that would be what the conventional family would use, and also what the CMC family would use. For the CMA edition, it's the G732. So that is, again, adding the CM advisor role, because they also certify the pay app, just like they certify the change order. And that would use the same continuation sheet, G703, because that's just a table where you're breaking down the line items. So these are what a contractor would use to apply for payment. Next, we have a CCD, a construction change directive, which is a directive to the contractor to make some sort of change that needs to be done quickly. Otherwise, there might be a delay in the project. But the parties haven't agreed on terms yet, so they're not ready to do a change order yet. So those are G714 and G733. Again, same deal. G714 is the regular conventional version and can also be used for CMC. But for CMA, we have G733, and that adds the CM advisor also signing off on that. And that's just, again, directive for a change. It's done quickly, and then the parties can do a change order later. And then finally, we have a certificate of substantial completion, which just certifies that the job is substantially complete, which is defined in our documents as being the stage at which the owner can occupy the project for its intended use. It's not necessarily for final completion. We do not have a document for final completion, but it is certifying the job is substantially complete. The owner can use it and operate it. And then the inspection list or punch list is attached to that, and those additional items the contractor is still required to complete. So again, same deal. We have the regular G704 for a conventional project, also for a CMC project, and then G734, which can be used for CMA version, and just simply adds the CM advisor to that. So those are some of the most commonly used forms. Again, there are many others that could potentially be used on a project, and we do have other versions for different families like CMA and other families as well, but those are some of the most commonly used. Okay, so next we have sustainability. So sustainability just in general means that it is a green or environmentally friendly project. And so we have exhibits for sustainable projects. So just like we have for other editions of these documents, we have CMA and CMC editions for the Sustainable Project exhibit. So these two documents are E234 and E235. And these are exhibits that can be attached to an agreement. So you would still have the agreements we've discussed before, and you would attach the exhibits to those agreements, and they would talk about sustainability, specifically creating a sustainability plan. So the parties agree to create this plan for sustainability and set certain criteria ahead of time so that they can meet those criteria and meet the plan for sustainability going through the project. So these exhibits, again, are not standalone. They're not separate agreements. They're attached to the existing agreements, and they will be listed in the documents themselves. So when you're looking at a particular document, pretty much any document, it will tell you what other documents are related. So for example, A133 is going to mention A201 for the general conditions, and it's also going to mention E235 for the sustainability exhibit. So again, you don't have to memorize these things to the letter. It's just important to use them in the correct manner and make sure you're using the right partner documents. But again, all you have to do is look at the document itself or even just in the instructions, and it'll tell you which documents to use with that.
Thank you, Ben. And I'm going to show everyone in just a second here how to access instructions or really get to know the specifics of a document without actually having to purchase the document. You can always preview it. We're almost at the end of the half hour here. That has certainly flown by. If you have any questions about any of the information that we went over today, I'm going to go briefly over the Learn page in a second here for just general resources on learning more. But any specific questions you have can be directed to our docinfo line. A lot of times, as I mentioned in the beginning, you're going to reach Ben himself. So we have an email and phone number there that you can reach out. We also have a technical support line for any technical questions on using the online service. So I'm going to round us out here by briefly visiting the AIA contract documents homepages just to point out some helpful resources. So I'm at aiacontracts.org here. The first thing I'm going to show you is the Documents tab here. This is where you can really get to know some of the documents that we went over today. So for example, you can filter by construction manager as advisor or constructor here, apply those filters, and you can get access to all of the documents that we mentioned today. So if you want to, for example, click on one, then you'll get to a page that goes over that document. You're also going to get, under the resources section here, a free preview that you can sample the entire document. Again, really get to know it. And you can also access those instructions for use. And that's going to be really helpful to have when you're filling out the document. You can also purchase for this page, and as I mentioned, you can visit the purchase page as well. This is how you get access to these templates to be able to use them for your own projects. And then finally, as I mentioned, you're going to have our Learn page as well. This is going to have any additional resources, including upcoming webinars, on-demand webinars, and helpful articles. So if you have the time, I recommend taking a look through some of these pages, seeing where these resources can help you. But for now, we've reached the end of the half hour. I'd like to thank everyone for attending. Again, you can direct any questions to this document content support line. This is under the support tab and contact us. Get in touch with Ben or one of our attorneys on staff. And thank you very much for attending, and I hope everyone has a wonderful evening. And thank you very much, Ben, for your time.
Thank you. And one quick note, just as you could probably see, we did update both these families in 2019. So you'll see that date for both of these families.
Oh yeah, that's a great point, Ben. So you'll see this year that follows after the alphanumeric. That refers to the latest year in which the document was revised and re-released. So sometimes you'll see one with 2009, and then you'll see the same alphanumeric with an updated year. That's because, as Ben just mentioned, these documents were recently updated.